show you is called Art Fundamentals by 3D Total Publishing. This book does a great job giving you the basics that every artist needs to know. It touches on light, color, shape, composition, perspective, depth, and anatomy. It gives a great baseline all the way up until an intermediate level of knowledge. The artists who collaborated on this book all worked on some pretty noteworthy projects such as Assassin's Creed, Harry Potter, X-Men, etc. They use great examples throughout the book to show you what works and what doesn't, very visually based, which is great. It feels like a school textbook in the absolute best way. It's very informative, but at the same time, it's very easy to get through and very understandable and digestible. Also, each section begins with some art history to give you a little introduction. Overall, I would say this is a great intro to intermediate level book. The next book that I have to share with you is called The Complete Color Harmony Pantone Edition by Leatrice Wiseman. Leatrice is the executive director of Pantone Color Institute, and Pantone, for those of you who don't know, is a company that created a proprietary color space that's used in multiple art fields such as fashion, product design, graphic design, and printmaking. They do color trend forecasting, and they've been around since about the 60s. I was immediately drawn to this book because of the amazing amount of color palettes that they have throughout. They have countless moods that they have put together and colors that correspond with these moods and how it invokes different energies. It's a great reference tool, and I find myself using it whenever I'm stuck on a project and I don't know what color I want to move forward with. I always tend to pick up this book and see where I want to jump off from. So it's a great inspirational tool, as well as being mostly color palettes that are put together. They also go into color psychology and a brief summary of how color trend forecasting works. Overall, it's a great reference tool, and I find myself using it a lot more than I initially thought I would even use it when I purchased it. For book number 3, I have Color and Light, A Guide to the Realist Painter by James Gurney. This book is a little different than the previous, although it does go over color like the last. It goes over how light affects color and different lighting scenarios and how to approach them. He covers different light sources such as overcast light, firelight, street lights, and a lot more. He goes over how light affects form and texture and different elements of color, and of course pigments, light fastness, and different types of palettes that can be used. He also touches on different effects of color and a lot more. The author does a great job of giving examples on each page, as well as giving an in-depth explanation of every topic that he's trying to cover. Overall, this book felt very easy to get through, but at the same time very informative. The next book that I'm going to show you is by far my favorite book of all time. Yes, obviously this book is in Russian, but fear not, you do not need to read or speak Russian to be able to get everything out of this book. I'm sure that if you use Google Translator, if you wanted to get more information from it, I'm sure you could do that. But this book is everything. Like, this book is my favorite resource. I pull it out, I think, daily, and I mean, you can tell like this book is falling. It's falling apart because I use it so much and I like take it everywhere with me. The imagery in this book is absolutely impeccable. He goes into structure lines of everyday objects in the beginning and how you would visualize it. But the anatomy in this book is next level. He goes over everything from simplified basic forms to how to get more complex and intricate. He also has more stiff structured forms. Then he shows you how to apply it to a more dynamic pose with more movement. He also explains really well through visuals how to anchor your drawings on a page, which is very important, I think a very difficult skill to learn as an artist. Towards the back of the book, he has great examples of different types of artwork, from fully rendered pieces to pieces that have a few quick strokes with beautiful line work, and how you can achieve a beautiful anatomical drawing both ways. He also has a brief section where he does cover the structure of animal forms and how you would approach drawing animals, but it's not that in depth. The main focus in this book is definitely human anatomy, and I use this book as a reference for everything. I've drawn from this book just to learn how the author thinks, because I think he's an impeccable artist, and I have learned so much in just this book. I've had this book for maybe like 15 years at this point, and it's by far my favorite and most used art book in my collection. The next book that I have, I'm kind of grouping it together as two books, and I'll explain why in a second. So the first one of the group is called Anatomy for Sculptors by Ulis Sarins, and I'm gonna butcher this, Sandis Kondrats. To begin with this book, I had a lot of trouble finding an anatomy book. I have probably gone through 8 or 9 that just weren't what I was looking for. Some of them really did or serve the purpose that I was looking for them to serve. This book serves that purpose. As an artist, you need help visualizing form, and as you know, if you're working from a reference image that you get from the internet or that you take, the camera flattens the image and it makes it hard to visualize it in 3D. And this book has really helped me visualize the human body in 3D, even when I'm working from a reference. Book does an amazing job taking different body types and having real life photos as well as 3D scans next to it. And then the image, they even further break it down into the planes of the body, the little bumps and planes of how it goes. It gives examples of how the body looks in a transverse plane also, which is super cool. I think this is the first anatomy book that I saw that does that. Over muscles, bone under the skin, fat deposits, which is really important, how it sits under the skin. It shows how muscles look when they grip and release. So like the bicep muscle, when it pulls closer, how it looks versus when it extends. It also has different age ranges throughout the book and how the body changes and looks throughout the stages of life. There's also a section on emotions and facial expressions. So the first book had a quick section on faces and facial expressions and facial muscles, but this one really goes in depth and is the most in-depth book for portrait artists I have ever seen. This book goes into every section of the face and how it can possibly move. Male, female, different age ranges. It covers everything. It also goes over the skeletal and muscular system, how fat affects the face, where the fat sits on the face, how it moves, all the important things that sometimes are really hard to visualize. This really helps make portraits look more dynamic, evoke more emotion, because you have so many examples of every emotion under the sun. And it's broken down with a photograph and digital rendering next to it. And so you can really see what's going on under the skin. Overall, these two are amazing books for if you like drawing humans, if you like drawing anatomy. This really breaks it down and helps you, if you're drawing from reference or even from life, it helps you understand the form a little better. All right. The next two books that I have, I am also grouping together. So the first one I have is called Impressionism by Inga Walther. So this book is tiny, and I also have this one, which is Baroque by Christina Menzel. I'm grouping these two together because when I start a project, I think it's important to look at masters of the past. And these two time periods in art history are ones that I personally relate to a lot and really inspire me. Most people can't go to an art museum every day, but you can pick up an art book and flip through it and get inspired by those masters. These books both have great quality images of paintings, and when I find certain paintings that pertain to what I'm doing at the time, I can always go to Google Art and Culture, which is an amazing tool, by the way, if you guys haven't used it before, and blow up images and look into the detail a little bit closer. So I encourage you guys to find an art period that you personally resonate with. Obviously for me it's Baroque and Impressionism, but if you can find that period and get a book that has artwork from that time, I think it can really open your eyes to techniques used by those masters, as well as help improve your current work. Okay, our last and final book is called The Illustrated Signs and Symbols Sourcebook by Adele Nosdar. So you may be wondering, Simone, why are you holding up a book that's not actually an art book? Well, I don't know why I did that. I have the same thoughts when I first got this book. I actually got it as a gift and I returned it because I was like, I don't need that. And then I actually ended up repurchasing it because this book goes over any and all symbolism that you can think of. This is really great when you're working in artwork and you want to insert deeper meaning into your work, but you also want to be aware of how certain symbols have been used throughout history. This book gives a quick blur on so many different symbols and topics. It goes over astrology, flowers, birds, anything you can think of. It gives you the meaning in different cultures throughout history, which is super interesting and overall has helped me add more depth to my work. Sometimes I just flip to a random page and see where I land and see where the book takes me. I've gotten so many ideas for drawings and different projects from this book. So although it's not your typical art book, it is a great source for inspiration and taking your work to that next level.